Hi, it's Dre Griggs with Obsidian Wisdom. Today we answer the question, what is the biggest concern people have getting ready for retirement? The number one concern, hands down, that we all have is running out of money. We have been living a life where we have this consistent income. We have a check coming in. We have something that we've built our life around. And then the idea of retiring, the idea of turning off that income stream, we just don't know how many other income streams we're going to be able to generate with the money we have saved. Now, the challenge of any fear is it turns off our ability to think logically and reasonably about things. And I'll give you a few examples to help drive this point home. But first, let me start with a quote from Ben Franklin. It's actually one that I think about often. He says that he who is willing to trade his freedom for security deserves neither and will lose both. And when it comes to your finances, there are times that what we're doing is we're trying to purchase security. There are guarantees that we're looking for where someone says they can get us a particular outcome because it is our biggest concern in retirement is whether we'll run out of money because there's so much that we don't know. We don't know how we're going to deal with inflation. We don't know how we're going to deal with rising healthcare costs. We don't know whether we're going to get to travel and enjoy ourselves. I mean, there's just so much that we don't know. And sometimes what we'll do is we will trade a little bit of our freedom, a little bit of our money, a little bit of our joy and our dream for some security. Now, this could be in the form of really anything. So sometimes what will happen is we have our money in a pension through our company and we have the ability to move it out sometimes. Sometimes we can't touch it, but sometimes we can. And what they do is they offer us a guarantee of about 1.5%. That's about what I see oftentimes. And people will say that is a guaranteed return rate. Can you guarantee me 1.5%? And I'll say, well, no, I cannot, as a fiduciary financial planner, guarantee any return. What I can guarantee you is most likely we will outperform that 1.5% most of the time. But does that mean that there's a recession where maybe we lose money one year and your 1.5% guarantee would have been nice? Yes, that's definitely possible. But the reality with all guarantees is we can only offer them if we know, or at least are pretty certain, that we can outperform it. So that gap between the guarantee that you were given and how much that company earns is, I would say, our ignorance tax. That is what we sold for peace of mind. That ignorance tax, that is what we traded our freedom for security. And they do that trade all the time. I'm someone who believes that the guarantees should be to protect us from financial catastrophes. That's what insurance always was meant for. When I go and buy a new TV, and let's say the TV is like $100, they want to offer me a $10 insurance on that TV. Heck, I've bought a router before and they offered me a $5 insurance package on my router where they're like, hey, if something happens, you can come back and trade it out and we won't ask any questions if you're interested in doing that. Would you like to add this insurance to your purchase? And I always say no because my philosophy is we only get insurance when something is going to be a financial catastrophe. Where if something happens, it would literally blow up our entire retirement plan. It would ruin our family. It would have us out on the street. These are risks that we shouldn't take. That is gambling. That is risk. But the idea that we're so uncomfortable with the uncertainty of the future that we're willing to pay something that I would say is probably like a 99% chance that you're just giving the money away. Because if you really take a step back and just appreciate how amazing actuaries are, the idea that they can mathematically calculate how long we're going to live, the probability of something happening to us at a particular point of our life based on our health and different situations, that they're able to compile these numbers. I would equate it to going to Las Vegas and they'll tell you what the over under is on so many things. And it's so fascinating how many times the over under is right there. Like it's right on the dot of exactly how much they scored, where there was an extra field goal or an extra touchdown or an extra three-pointer with a few seconds left, where the line was exactly as they thought. Actuaries are that same way. What that ultimately means is anytime we buy insurance, it's already been calculated to the point that there is a significantly higher probability that we will not have to use that insurance because that's how insurance companies make their money. They are in the business of calculating the odds and they build their peace of mind and certainty around the numbers. And then when they use those numbers, they then offer us a price that works based off of the concrete numbers that they have. Now, what most people do, what you and I will do, is because we don't have all the information to make a sound financial decision, we end up taking on a losing proposition where it was very unlikely that that situation was going to happen in the first place. And sometimes the money that we pay out, we end up losing both. So I'll give you one more story and then we'll close it up. There was this time that I met with this elderly person and she had burial insurance, and it was probably about $20,000 whole life policy, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a permanent life insurance policy as long as you make the payment. I believe her payment was something like $50 or $100, probably it was somewhere around there. And I asked her, "Hey, how long have you had this policy?" And she was like, I had it about 15 years, 30 years, or something like that. And I was like, "Okay, how much do you pay?" And she was, like $50 or something like that a month. And I was like, "Okay." And then we calculated the numbers out. And I was like, "Are you aware that the money that you've paid into this policy exceeds the amount that the policy is actually worth, how much it actually covers?" And then she said there was this one time that they called me to increase the amount of coverage I had, where it went from 20,000 to 30,000 or something like that. And I said, "Well, it's because there are certain laws where your insurance has to have like some amount of a benefit for you." That's true. If you were to get a mortgage or refinance, they have to be able to show that it was some sort of a benefit for you so that we feel it's not fraud or something like that. And what ended up happening was she had already paid more than the policy was worth. So they had increased the policy amount so that they could still maintain some semblance of value. Obviously, not much, not relative to the amount that she paid in and the amount that she was going to get back. She had traded her freedom for security. And as a result, she actually ended up losing both. She could have actually put that $50 away each month in a savings account and got 0.000 whatever percent. And she would have been the exact same position, if not better off, because she would have had all of the money, even though it didn't keep up with inflation. She wouldn't have paid any of the fees that had to do with the insurance that she had. And we find that that ends up happening a lot of the time where there are certain things that we should not be seeking a guarantee against. And when people offer that insurance, when they offer those guarantees, what we're doing is we're paying an ignorance tax. There is the amount that they're promising and the high probability about the amount that they'll make. And then that gap is what we're losing. When it comes to your retirement planning, it's very important for you to gain the wisdom to be aware of the investment strategies that you can use to maintain your retirement without you having to sacrifice your money, because peace of mind does have a cost. And I tell people all the time where sometimes your peace of mind is too expensive. Your peace of mind is so expensive because you don't have a general understanding. So I'll give you another example. There was someone I had met, and based on their age and their children and their financial goals, they were too conservative. And so we sat and we had a talk, and they told me, "Hey, look, my mother in law lost everything during the 2001 9/11 attacks. But the stock market went crazy, it closed for a day, and they lost everything. And so she took all her money out the second she could. And then I said, I'll never put my money in the stock market. So I only invest in CDs and like money market accounts." And I was like, yeah, I understand that fear and that uncertainty. But when you look at the numbers shows what ultimately ended up happening was your mother-in-law sold at the absolute bottom of the market when they lost everything. And then she missed when the market rebounded. It would be the same if you sold in 2008, right after the recession, and then you missed out on the bull run of the next decade where the everything just kept working. You threw a dart at a board and that stock or that real estate or that business would have exploded in value because they were printing money. They didn't get loans for nothing. So there's just a bunch of money in the market. If you sell in the worst possible time, you're allowing that fear to create that ignorance tax that we're talking about. So it's true that the number one concern that retirees have is running out of money. What I'm telling you is because of that fear, you're actually not investing in a way to ensure that you don't run out of money. And it's becoming almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. You are self-sabotaging because the reality is there's three investments that you can do to help ensure that you don't run out of money. And number one is the stock market. And I've told you the top 10% of wealth in the United States owns 89% of the stock market. And the bottom 50% of Americans own less than 1% of the stock market. What is it that is keeping the bottom 50% from investing in the stock market? It is that fear and that discomfort and that ignorance tax that we're paying. Number two is I tell people to invest in real estate where you can generate a rental income. Whether you get a duplex and you live on one side and rent out the other side, whether you just have an investment property where you put someone in it and then you rent it out, there is a little bit of discomfort of trying something new, dealing with tenants, things breaking, are they going to take care of the stuff? But it is a learning curve that you can learn. It is a skill. It is wisdom that you can gain. It is insight. Remember, wisdom just means insight. There is a knowledge gap that you can close to where you should feel a little more confident about taking on this adventure. And the third one is profits from a business. You can either be a silent partner in an already existing business where you can invest in that business and then they run the day to day and they send you the check in the mail. You could invent something and then give it to another company and receive a royalty check every single month or every single year based off your invention, and you do absolutely nothing in the business. You can also invest in yourself and gain the insight necessary to be a successful salesperson, run a business, whatever skills that you have, so that you're able to then generate an additional source of income that you can then leverage into your passive income and your overall retirement income. There is a ignorance tax that all of us pay, whatever the number is that you need to get to. If I want to make $1 million per year, which is what my current goal is, then whatever I make now and whatever I want to make, that is my ignorance tax. I have to bridge my knowledge, my wisdom, my understanding so that I can become a person that can generate $1 million a year. Now, you, whatever your number is, whatever your dream retirement number is, where you're at and where you need to get to, that is your ignorance tax. And we don't want to trade away some of our freedom for security. And we ultimately end up trading both and getting neither back. First of all, I just want to thank you for watching the video. If you found value in it, go ahead and like and subscribe so you can continue receiving valuable insight on how to close that investment gap through wealthy retirement planning. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy life.